Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, often referred to as the Milwaukee Cannibal, remains one of the most notorious figures in history. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer committed heinous crimes that included murder, dismemberment, necrophilia, and even cannibalism. His actions not only shocked the world but also served as a jarring reminder of the depths of human depravity. Yet, his story has far-reaching implications beyond just the gruesome details of his life. It's a story that intersects with issues of mental health, law enforcement credibility, and community safety. This video aims to explore Dahmer's life, his victims, his crimes, and the impact of his case on society. Through this deep examination, we uncover a disturbing yet necessary narrative about human behavior, societal oversight, and the justice system. Jeffrey Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His early childhood seemed relatively normal, but as he grew older, signs of psychological troubles began to emerge. Dahmer exhibited an unusual fascination with dissection and dead animals, a fixation that would later evolve tragically. His family environment was deeply unstable, marked by frequent arguments between his parents and emotional neglect. These factors arguably contributed to his growing feelings of abandonment and isolation. By the time Dahmer reached high school, he had become an alcoholic and an outcast, alienated both socially and emotionally. His first known criminal act of murder occurred shortly after his high school graduation in June 1978. Jeffrey Dahmer's reign of terror spanned 13 years and left 17 young men dead. Below, we'll take a closer look at his victims and the horrifying methods he used. At just 18 years old, Dahmer committed his first murder when he invited hitchhiker Stephen Hicks to his family home under the pretense of drinking together. After several hours, Hicks wanted to leave, but Dahmer, driven by fear of loneliness, struck him. With a dumbbell, strangled him, and dismembered his body. His remains were later scattered in the woods near the family residence. This crime initiated a pattern that would span over a decade. After nearly a decade without killing, Dahmer murdered 25-year-old Stephen Tuomi in a hotel room in Milwaukee. Dahmer later claimed to have no recollection of the act, though he remembered waking up to find Tuomi dead. This marked the beginning of a more active and calculated killing spree. Both victims, aged 14 and 22, were lured with promises of money in exchange for posing nude. Dahmer drugged and strangled them, disposing of their bodies in his grandmother's house, where he lived at the time. He began experimenting with preserving their remains, a practice that grew more refined with each subsequent crime. Sears was murdered shortly after Dahmer was convicted of sexually assaulting a minor. He became Dahmer's first victim whose body parts were preserved for long-term use. Dahmer kept his skull and genitals, signaling the escalation of his necrophilic tendencies. After moving to apartment 213 at 924 North 25th Street in Milwaukee, Dahmer killed most of his later victims. Victims such as Raymond Smith, Ernest Miller, and Oliver Lacey were not only murdered but also dismembered, photographed, and in some cases cannibalized. Dahmer often preserved body parts, including skulls and skeletons, for a macabre shrine that he envisioned. Dahmer's methods became disturbingly ritualistic. He used sleeping pills to incapacitate his victims, strangled most of them, and then dissected their bodies. He often photographed the process, which he claimed allowed him to relive the killings. One of the most controversial and heartbreaking aspects of Dahmer's crimes was the murder of 14-year-old Konorak Synthesomphone. After drugging and drilling a hole in Synthesomphon's skull, Dahmer attempted to create a zombified state by injecting acid into his brain. When the boy escaped and members of the public tried to intervene, 2 police officers shockingly returned him to Dahmer's custody. Synthesomphone was killed shortly afterward. This incident exposed glaring racial and systemic failures within law enforcement. The arrest of Dahmer on July 22, 1991, came after Tracy Edwards managed to escape from Dahmer's grip and alert authorities. Upon investigating Dahmer's apartment, police uncovered a nightmarish array of human remains, Polaroid photos, and tools for dismemberment. Dahmer calmly confessed to his crimes, providing detailed accounts of his murders. Understanding Jeffrey Dahmer's psyche remains a perplexing challenge. Diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and a psychotic disorder, he was still deemed legally sane. Dahmer himself described his actions as uncontrollable compulsions stemming from a desperate need for control and companionship. His cannibalistic acts, he said, were meant to make his victims a part of him forever. The link between his psychological state and his crimes has sparked endless debates, particularly about the role of mental health in criminal justice. Could earlier intervention have prevented his crimes? During his trial in 1992, the world watched in horror as the grim details of Dahmer's actions unfolded. He was convicted of 15 murders and sentenced to 15 consecutive life sentences. Despite his heinous crimes, Dahmer expressed remorse during his sentencing, even expressing a wish for his own death. While in prison, Dahmer reportedly found religion and became a baptized Christian. However, his time behind bars was short-lived. On November 28, 1994, he was killed by fellow inmate Christopher Scarver, who later claimed divine inspiration for the act. Beyond the individual stories of Dahmer's victims lies a broader societal impact. His case highlighted numerous systemic failures, law enforcement accountability. The death of Konarak Synthesomphone revealed racial biases and negligence within law enforcement. It served as a wake-up call for communities and police departments to address these issues. Dahmer's case reignited debates about mental illness, early warning signs, and the responsibilities of families and institutions in prevention. The crimes fueled discussions about marginalized communities, particularly the LGBTQ+ community in Milwaukee, and their vulnerability to violence. Advances in forensic science and interdepartmental cooperation were partly spurred by the investigative gaps that allowed Dahmer to remain undetected for so long. While the lenses of history often focus on the perpetrator, it's crucial to center the narratives of the 17 young men whose lives were tragically cut short. Their identities, aspirations, and humanity deserve to be at the forefront of any discussion about Dahmer's crimes. Stephen Hicks, an 18-year-old hitchhiker with dreams of a bright future. Ernest Miller, a talented dancer. Oliver Lacey, a devoted father-to-be. Every victim was more than a statistic. Their stories remind us why justice and accountability remain paramount. Jeffrey Dahmer's life and crimes exemplify the horrifying consequences of unchecked mental illness, systemic oversight, and social neglect. While his actions are unimaginable, reflecting on the lessons of his case helps society move toward a safer, more understanding future. Through the lens of history, Jeffrey Dahmer's legacy is not simply a tale of horror. It's a call for vigilance, empathy, and reform. The complex legacy of Jeffrey Dahmer, exploring his life, crimes, and societal impact. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, often referred to as the Milwaukee Cannibal.